Kunja Vihari
Damadava Kunja Vihari
Janaba Labha
Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Giridhari
Gopi Janavalabha Giridhari
Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Giridhari Yashodaranjana Vadajanaranjana Yashodaranjana Vadajanaranjana Yamuna Kira Yamuna Kira Vanajari
Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari
Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari
Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari
Jaya Radha Madhava
Jaya Radha Madhava
Vasudevaya.
Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayanam Namaskritya.
Narayanam Namaskritya.
Naram Chaiva Narottamam.
Naram Chaiva Narottamam.
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam
Devim Saraswati Vyasam
Tato Jaya Mudiraya
Tato Jaya Mudiraya
Nasta Praeshu Abhadesu
Rastadesu Bhavesu
Nityam Bhagavatam Sevaya
Nityam Bhagavatam Sevaya
Bhagavati Uttama Sloke
Bhagavati Uttama Sloke
Bhakti Vibhakti Naistiki
Bhakti Vibhakti Nastiki
Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 3, Chapter 14, Pregnancy of Diti in the Evening, text number 16. Okay, please repeat. Iti tam vira maricha Iti tam vira maricha Kripanam bahu basinem Kripanam bahu basinem Pratyahanu Nayan Vacha Pratyahanu Nayan Vacha Pravidananga Kashmalam Pravidananga Kashmalam Iti tam viramaricha Kripanam bahubashinem Pratyahanu nayan vacha Pravida nanga kashmalam Iti tam viramaricha Kripanam bahubashinem Pratyahanu nayan vacha Pravidananga kashmalam Ititam vira maricha Kripanam bahubashinem Pratyahanu nayan vacha Pravidananga kashmalam
Ititam viramaricha Kripanam bahubashinem Pratyahanu nayan vacha Pravidananga kashmalam Ititam viramaricha
Kapanam bahubashanam Priyanu aye vacha Pravidanaka kashmalam
Kripanam bahubashinem Thus,
thus,
tam,
tam,
unto her,
unto her,
Vera,
Vira,
O hero,
O hero,
Maricha,
Maricha,
O son of Marichi,
O son of Marichi,
Kashyapa,
Kashyapa,
Kripanam,
Kripanam,
unto the poor,
unto the poor,
Bahubashinim,
Bahubashanim,
too talkative,
too talkative,
Pratyaha,
Pratyaya,
reply, Anunanyan,
Anunanya,
pacifying,
pacify,
Vacha,
Vacha,
by words,
by words,
Pravida,
Pravida,
highly agitated,
highly agitated,
Ananga,
Ananda,
lust,
love,
Kashmala,
Ashma,
contaminated.
contaminated.
Translation, please repeat. O hero,
O hero,
Vidura,
Vidura,
Diti,
Diti,
being thus afflicted
being
thus
thus
afflicted
by the contamination of lust,
by the contamination of lust,
and therefore poor and talkative,
and therefore poor talkative,
was pacified by the son of Marichi
possessed by the son of Rishi,
in suitable words.
and suitable
In Srila Prabhupada's divine purport. When a man or woman is afflicted by the lust of sex desire, it is to be understood is sinful contamination. Kashyapa was engaged in his spiritual activities, but he did not have sufficient strength to refuse his wife, who was thus afflicted. He could have refused her with strong words expressing impossibility, but he was not as spiritually strong as Vidura. Vidura is addressed here as a hero because no one is stronger in self-control than a devotee of the Lord. It appears that Kashyapa was already inclined to have sexual enjoyment with his wife. And because he was not a strong man, he tried to dissuade her only with pacifying words. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport to the 16th verse, 14th chapter, Pregnancy of Diti in the Evening, 3rd canto, Srimad Bhagavatam. Beautiful story of personality of Godhead. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. I offer my humble and respectful obeisances on His divine grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. Srila Prabhupada, who is opening my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge, although they have certainly been shut by the darkness of ignorance. Ukam kroti vachalam kumbam lingaya tegirim. Yakripa tamaham bande shigurun dinataranam paramananda madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. So, my poor texted me that my verse was 17, and I had prepared for that and was really excited and condensed. It's a verse that more suits me.
Well, go for it.
But instead I got this verse. No,
We did this one
No, we
yesterday.
can take
We
17.
did this yesterday.
that's what my poor wrote me. But the devotee said, no, it's
No, you can go. We do more than one verse. Please do 17.
Yeah.
well, let me say something and then we'll go on to 17.
Okay.
So I said 17 more suits me because I'm not a hero like Vidura. I'm not like completely beyond this power of lust. So I have, I'm a weaker person like Kashyapa, but we shouldn't think of him as one of us. This is a son of Marichi, one of the mental sons of Brahma. He's a very prominent person in the universe. He's the father of powerful Davids like Indra. Even Lord Vishnu's incarnation of Vamanadeva appears from his wife. So he's no ordinary person. But here in this situation, he also becomes the father of the Asuras. So we'll see as we progress here, and I'll go on and do 17, since y'all are giving me that privilege. And apparently there are other devotees that heard Mayapur do this yesterday. He very, very clearly in writing wrote me that my verse was 17, but Dwi and Preetu and Donna Kaylee said no, it was only up to 15, and 16 was today's verse. So I don't know where it is, but I'll do 17 and we'll know tomorrow will be 18. Okay, so 17 reads, Eshateham vidashami priyam bilu yad ichchasi tashakamana kakuryat siddhis driver kikiyata. Please repeat. English translation. O afflicted one, I shall forthwith gratify whatever desire is dear to you. For who else but you is the source of the three perfections of liberation. O afflicted one, I shall forthwith gratify whatever desire is dear to you. For who else but you is the source of the three perfections of liberation? Srila Prabhupada's Divine Purport. The three perfections of liberation are religiosity, economic development, and sense gratification. For a conditioned soul, the wife is considered to be the source of liberation because she offers her service to the husband for his ultimate liberation. Conditional material existence is based on sense gratification. If someone has the good fortune to get a good wife, he is helped by the wife in all respects. If one is disturbed in his conditional life, he becomes more and more entangled in material contamination. A faithful wife is supposed to cooperate with her husband to fulfill all material desires so that he can then become comfortable and execute spiritual activities for the perfection of life. If, however, the husband is progressive in spiritual advancement, the wife undoubtedly shares in his activities, and thus both the wife and the husband profit in spiritual perfection. It is essential, therefore, that girls as well as boys be trained to discharge spiritual duties so that at the time of cooperation, both will be benefited. The training of the boy is brahmacharya, and the training of the girl is chastity. A faithful wife and spiritually trained brahmachari are a good combination for advancement of the human mission. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta Purport to the 17th sloka, 14th chapter, Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto. So here we hear an expert, as Srila Prabhupada said, speaking pacifying words. That's often required in diplomacy. Unless one is very powerful and can speak strong words to a weaker party, then it's hard to get a result. The party on the other side has to be weaker or much more subordinate so that your strong words don't agitate them to not cooperate. So, Kashyapa could have said, "Oh, my child, this is completely impossible. Please, not now, later. It's not a proper time. I do not desire demons being born of me. Now simply go to the river and bathe." He could have spoken like that. Srila Prabhupada said it appears that, he was inclined, as all husbands are, to, fulfill his wife's desire. So he spoke pacifying words. Not to, as we'll see in the course of his speech, he warns her. He tells her what's going to happen. But still she can't resist. And he's forced to accept destiny in that way. But his speech is so diplomatic. I mean, just see. He says, immediately he recognizes her situation is drowning. She's drowning in this pain of lusty desire. She needs her desire fulfilled. Her sister has beautiful children, and she has yet to bear a child. And somehow, ever by the force of nature, here she is, just feeling that need to the extreme extent. And so, instead of telling her, "No, it's impossible right now," he turns to her and he says, "Oh, afflicted one." He recognizes, her need and her terrible pain. "Oh, afflicted one." And immediately he tells her, he makes her feel safe in the sense that he says, I shall forthwith gratify whatever desire is dear to you. So she's given shelter. She understands that he is going to gratify me. He's so expert. "Oh, afflicted one, I shall forthwith gratify whatever desire is dear to you. For who else?" And then he praises her. "For who else but you is the source of the three perfections of liberation." Completely, just expert words. And we'll see that, they don't get, he goes on pacifying her, but he does warn her. He actually explains to her what will happen. And he goes on to, while telling her that, he goes on to glorify Lord Shiva, explaining his position. But she doesn't become pacified. And so, as a result, those of us who are familiar with the story understand that asuras are born. But at the same time, it's a beautiful story because, she, after it's all said and done, she recognizes her mistake and her offense. She's offended Lord Shiva, and she begs for forgiveness from her husband and Lord Shiva. Consequently, she becomes blessed, despite being the mother of the most terrible demons, the founder of the demoniac dynasty, Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha. She is blessed with a perfect grandson to pacify it ultimately, namely Prahlad Maharaj. So she's given that benediction. So nothing was lost in one sense. She becomes completely satisfied knowing that her future grandson will be the great Prahlad Maharaj. Just analyze Srila Prabhupada's purport here. He says the three perfections of liberation and religiosity, economic development, and sense gratification liberation. For a conditioned soul, the wife is considered to be the source of liberation because she offers her service to the husband for ultimate liberation. It's the wife that allows the husband to become free. How is that? Because the husband is bound up. He's the provider. He's providing for a household and children. He's providing for society through his dharma. So how can he ever escape this? People are dependent. They need your help as long as you can give it. It doesn't mean that the husband becomes invalid and unhealthy and has Alzheimer's disease or something. No, how can he gain liberation, in that state? Prior to anything like that happening, he has to be prepared for liberation. But how can he escape? He has everyone depending on him. He's allowed to escape because the wife stays home. The wife is there. So the family doesn't lose both. The mother remains, and the family protects her. And only the father is able to leave, either by entering into spiritual life at home, not being forced to go to work and do so many challenging things, but allowed to simply meditate and serve Guru and Krishna. Or, of course, for Kshatriyas, they may go off to the forest, and of course for Brahmins, they may take sannyas. But Vaishyas and Sudras, often they stay at home. And that way, in their later years, try to fix their mind upon Krishna to the best of their ability. But the wife is there to assist the children, to help bring up the grandchildren, to give advice. It's not that they're impotent. Just like we see when King Santanu left and Bhishma could not beget children, it was the queen, Mother Ganga, before she moved on, after she moved on, the second wife of Santanu. She stayed and encouraged the family. She helped the Kurus. She found a way to find an heir to the throne. She worked with Bhishma to protect the dynasty. Bhishma was the fighting force. But she was so much the inspiration behind the dynasty until the grandchildren could take over. So, the mother has an extremely valuable role in the family. The children are encouraged to protect her. Whereas if the mother and the father are gone, the family, it doesn't have that direct instruction or contact. Of course, it's there in people's memories and it's there in their heart. But when it's actually living with you, then one can be more potent in their duty. So in that way, the wife gives the husband the opportunity for liberation because she remains. Conditional material existence is based on sense gratification. And if someone has the good fortune to get a good wife, he is helped by the wife in all respects. The wife is doing everything. We can't imagine the power of someone like Queen Draupadi. What she did for Yudhisthira and the Pandavas is amazing. How she ran the palace. She took care of everything. Yudhisthira's mind could be at peace for all those things that she was managing. And he could do, the work of the king. His wife was taking care of the home, taking care of the guests, taking care of making sure everyone was fed properly in a huge palace, not just a house. a palace where there's always so many dignitaries, other kings, princes, all kinds of very VIP visitors. And she's responsible for all that they have proper quarters. She has to make sure all the servants are doing their jobs properly, that everyone is being taken care of. As well as numerous other things, they're managing. So, good wife means one has somebody, running the whole household. My friend in Baton Rouge, BJ, he tells me how his mother, when his father passed on, it was no problem dealing with the money because his father never dealt with the money. His father was a very prominent physicist in the state of Louisiana, teacher at LSU. He made good money. But he would simply give it to his wife, and his wife took care of the rest. She took care of everything. So when he passed on, there was no problem paying the bills. Even when my father passed on, my mother always paid the bills. Father just gave her a check, she put it in the bank, and she paid the bills. That's how it was in their household. It's not like it's like that in every household, but it just shows the, how much a woman can do. So the lady is helping the husband in all respects. Everything becomes possible. If one is disturbed in his conditional life, he becomes more and more entangled in material contamination. We can never, understand how powerful the material nature can be. If we become disturbed, there seems to be a lack of cooperation from the wife. She has become unchaste in some way. The husband's mind is disturbed. No telling what he'll do. He may take to drinking. Then everything's finished. All it takes is, falling down a little bit into material nature, and everything can become finished. May just get so stressed out that he has a heart attack. These things happen all the time. So it's a great blessing to have a good wife. A faithful wife is supposed to cooperate with her husband in fulfilling all material desires so that he can become comfortable to execute spiritual activities for perfection in life. If, however, the husband is progressive in spiritual advancement, the wife undoubtedly shares in his activities, and thus both the wife and the husband profit in spiritual perfection. So whatever spiritual perfection, however much husband please Guru and Guranga, the wife also gets the benefit. Because the wife is the better half of the husband. She's made it possible. It is essential, therefore. Let's see, there was one part here. Okay, you're right here. It is essential, therefore, that girls as well as boys be trained to discharge spiritual duties so that at the time of cooperation, both will be benefited. What is that time of cooperation? It means when they get married. Now they had to cooperate. And that's a big thing. It's a big thing, Lord Chaitanya teaches best, to cooperate, to have sufficient tolerance, and to have sufficient humility that one can cooperate instead of just driving the other party insane, sometimes, driving the other party to be in an uncooperative spirit. Requires a ton of tolerance, a ton of humility, and a ton of respect for the other party, and a ton of pridelessness. that, we're constantly not demanding. So, that's the time of cooperation. If each party is cooperating like that, then, they can be successful. So very, very important, and Prabhupada's putting the emphasis on the training, because a brahmachari is taught to be humble. I mean, can you imagine? They have, they're not just learning their academics. They're not just preparing for their future dharma. They're learning to develop their character, which means developing spiritual attributes. They don't simply become puffed up and arrogant and conceited about their learning like a demon. But they become humble and tolerant. These things take practice. So what is a brahmachari given to do? Well, go out and bag alms for the guru, because that's the system. In those days, that was the system. No one paid money. People would give alms. They would give in charity to the guru. So from door to door, the boys went, and they would take whatever was given and bring back to the spiritual master. Not that they put some in the other pocket for themselves, but they didn't own anything. Nothing was theirs. Near mama, nothing is mine. They learned from the time they went to Gurukula, perhaps at the age of 5, until they left, perhaps at the age of 25. For Prabhupada says, for 5 to 25 years, one must develop perfect character. So the first thing to be learned is niyamama. Nothing belongs to me. Because ultimately, nothing does belong to us. It belongs all to Krishna. So, how is it being used for Krishna? So, one learns right from the beginning. It all belongs to the Guru. Whatever I'm collecting, it's the Guru's. It's not mine. And then one brings it back, and Prabhupada says in the 7th canto, where Yudhisthira, it's being described by Narada Muni to Yudhisthira, the Varnashram system. The brahmachari doesn't eat until the spiritual master calls him, or the spiritual master's wife calls him. If she doesn't call, he doesn't call, he has to fast. Can't just go in the icebox and get something on his own. That's the system, to learn humility and tolerance. Very heavy education. But that's the training in brahmacharya. One is trained like that, to develop those 18 qualities that Krishna describes in the 16th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita for the divine. The qualities that are possessed by those who are imbued with the divine nature. And then he describes the qualities of those imbued with the demoniac nature. I think it's actually not in the 16th chapter, it's in the 13th chapter, like verses 8 through 12, where Krishna describes these 18 specific attributes that are possessed by those who have the divine nature. So that has to be brought out. We all come to Krishna consciousness, or come to the spiritual master, in the modes of material nature. So, we're like a fire that's been put out. We just barely had some smoke coming out of most of us. It said that one who falls into the material world, it's like a spark that falls into grass, is considered to have fallen into the mode of goodness. They can create a little fire. But in the mode of passion, one creates less fire, and in the mode of ignorance, it's like falling into water. No fire. So, we come covered over by the modes. So the spiritual master has to, revive our divine nature. Sometimes Srila Prabhupada said it was like polishing coal. It's always black. You have to press it so hard before it becomes a diamond. So, the job of the guru is not an easy job, to train the disciple and bring out the best in them. But, that's where it begins with brahmacharya. And what is Krishna also says, that famous verse, all of us know it, that, one has to make humble inquiries from the spiritual master, submissive one has to be submissive to the spiritual master. You know, if one's not submissive, one's not humble to the spiritual master, one can't learn. It's just like in school, you know, same thing with our teacher. If we're unsubmissive and not humble, then what can we learn? If we're just making fun of the teacher and we have no respect for what they have to offer, then what is one going to learn? You know, one becomes so unsubmissive, they skip classes, they go to sleep in the room, they don't pay attention, and they don't care. What can they possibly learn? So, you know, this brahmachari is perfect training. And for the girl to learn chastity, you know, she has to, that's very difficult, you know, to just remain faithful. Who knows what's going to happen? What do most of the wedding vows say? Whatever happens, one's going to remain chaste. Whatever happens. But what happens can be very difficult in life. It doesn't work out perfect for everybody, for hardly anybody. I mean, just look at the famous story of Nila and Damayanti. Nila's a great king. But what happens? The personification of Kali tricks him. And he loses everything. Everything. Just like Yudhisthira lost everything. But Damayanti sticks with him. You know, through thick and thin. Through heaven and hell. She doesn't leave him. So many famous stories. So many. You know, that show the power of chastity. And, you know, one has, it's spiritual strength. So if the wife is chaste and the husband is a brahmachari, then Prabhupada says that's a perfect combination for advancement in the human mission. And what is our human mission? You know, Srila Prabhupada has given us our human mission. You know, it's not just to meditate, but it's to Krishna. It's to serve Srila Prabhupada. It's to serve Guru and Guru. Oh, time's really up, so I got to end this in a couple of minutes here. So that's why we push on the Sankirtan movement. That's why we do all this manual labor. That's why we exercise our brains. That's why we go out and try to engage other people in helping Srila Prabhupada. You know, help us to build a temple. You know, help us to take care of cows. You know, this is devotional service. It's not ordinary charity. One is giving to Guru and Guranga. This is good for one's spiritual life. It's not just material charity that you're going to get back a ton in the future of material things. One's going to get back spiritual things. One will certainly get back material things also, just like Krishna blessed the garland maker who was a Brahmin. You know, you will live wonderfully in this material world and you will achieve spiritual perfection. So by devotional service is all auspicious. One of the first attributes of devotional service is that one becomes free from misery. That's the power of devotional service. So that's why we go out and do all these things. That's why we work hard for the spiritual master. And that's why we don't just sit down and meditate. It's not the solution in this day and age. Anyway, we have to end here, but it's interesting that in our devotional cult, so to speak, we have, Prabhupada said, the devotee can control the senses. So the perfect example is Haridas Thakur. It's amazing because he didn't just tell Durga Prasad